Hello. Welcome into Ask Me Anything. All right. So, how this works is on the bottom, you will see a Q&A box, and you can um, submit any questions that you have in that Q&A box, and only I will be able to see the question. So, just so you know that. And then also there is a place where you can raise your hand. Now, if you press the raise your hand, I will be the only one that sees it on my end. And what that allows me to do is to give you privileges to turn on your microphone, and if you want to turn on your camera or your video, and we can have a dialogue. And I find that that's super effective for coaching, is if we're able to have that live dialogue. So if you're willing and brave, feel free to raise your hand and I will pull you on, and we could talk about whatever questions you have, wherever you're struggling, if you're still drinking, if you need clarity about what type of relationship you want to have with drinking or what that looks like or where you're at in your process. Would love to help have you have some breakthroughs here and really just understand what the next steps are, right? We may not be able to get to the goal if we can't get to the next step. So I want to know where you might be struggling. And, anytime, what I love about an environment like this where we share as a group is because wherever you're struggling and your journey is probably exactly where somebody else is too. So I think there's just so much power in being able to share where we're at. And also when we share where we're at, it actually lightens the load by just getting the thoughts out of our head, right? By just saying what's on our mind, by just speaking where we're struggling, right? Every time I'm in a group coaching setting and I volunteer to get coached, people will email me later if it's an intimate group and say, wow, that really helped me so much too. I've been struggling with something similar. It looks a little different in my life, but something very similar, and that really helped. So not only are you getting the benefit when you get coached, but it's like a blessing to others. It has this ripple effect where, and you may have seen where I may have coached somebody and you got help, right? So I really love it when we have this environment where we could come privately, discuss things amongst us. And if everybody's on this call, you know that they are in a similar position too, right? So we're just here to help one another without judgment and keep that space where we could talk about drinking, and it's just a habit that we just don't want to be doing too much of. So anyone want to get coached, or anybody have something they want to put in the Q&A box? Let me pull that up and feel free to ask away anything you want. Okay, I'm going to wait to see what you guys want. Don't be shy. You're here for a reason. You found me for a reason. You want to be here because you want to learn something, and let me help you on that journey. Just give me a little bit of direction, because I could go off in so many different ways. And I find a lot of times recently I've been going off in managing our emotions, because it's a very emotional time right now. They're talking about all the PTSD that's going to come out of these times, right? Especially if you're have been exposed to it, or you're on the front lines, or a first responder, right? A lot of these people are really experiencing, a lot of hardship mentally. And one way to cope with that can be alcohol. And I see all these memes on Facebook about people running to alcohol for homeschooling. And I'm teaching my kid to be a bartender, right? To manage my learning and my ability to, be a better teacher. Like all these memes as I scroll. So I know it's funny and it's supposed to be lighthearted, but just realize some of that, some people really take to mean that it's okay to drink. It's okay to solve our problems with alcohol. And that just gets us to be a slippery slope, right? Because if it's okay this month, right, and our brain starts to get patterned that way, and our brain starts to learn, hey, this is effective and this does work, where's the end point then? And we'd love to say, oh, when this is over, I'll be able to go back to the way it was, but will you, right? Really, will you? So our brains really do adapt, and they adapt for good and they adapt for bad, meaning they adapt in ways we want them to adapt and in ways we don't want them to adapt. So it's all about practicing those daily patterns or those daily habits so you get the lifestyle you truly want. So you create the relationship you truly want with others, with alcohol, with things. You know, relationships are always with things, right? The relationship we have with things is always in our mind. We have a relationship with our money. We have a relationship with our children. We have a relationship with our spouse or significant other, right? We have a relationship with our jobs. So we have relationships all over, and we have relationships with our feelings, right? And some of us don't want those relationships. So we just say, I'm out. Where's the bottle? So if you think about it that way, right, where can that help you see where some of your blocks may be? Okay, ladies, I see a lot of you here, and I would really love to help you wherever you're struggling. Okay, great. Somebody just wrote in, hey, Kara, I get waves of wanting to drink. Yes, yes. And they are waves, right? The desire comes in waves. It's just like a cycle, right? It's like, oh, it's intense and then it's not intense. And then it's intense and then it's not intense. Do you know all of our feelings act that way? Like, I just want to take a moment to say desire acts that way. Just think about, you see something online and you want it and you're like, do I really need it? Should I buy this shirt? Should I buy these shoes? Like, is now the time I should be spending extra money on that? Like, we have that cycle, right? And when we see it, we want it. And then, the want will go away. Same with the alcohol, right? It comes in those waves. We can have waves of love, right? Like when I don't know how many of you here are moms, but when I see my daughter sleeping, I get this wave of like, oh, she's so beautiful and perfect and calm, and this wave of love, right? And then the wave of love goes away when we're interacting all the time, right? So yes, all feelings, fear, sadness, desire, love, all of our feelings come in waves. Absolutely. All right, so I had to stop there because I just want you to realize this is not unique to alcohol. It's just how our emotions are. Our emotions are just chemicals that our body creates, right? Because of our thoughts that we have, we create certain chemicals, feel good chemicals, not feeling good chemicals. So our body creates these chemicals for us to feel a certain way. And this is just information, so we act a certain way, right? And think about it. If your body created these chemicals of fear, of desire, of sadness, of whatever, of boredom, I know is a big one. If your body created those feelings, your body can also manage those feelings. Like, you are the creator of those feelings. They didn't just magically fall out of the air, like raining sadness today, and I got too much absorbed in my skin. No, these are neurotransmitters and chemicals and hormones that are created by your body, by the way you think. So you create your own sadness, you create your own desire, you create your own love. And so many of us are taught that others create our emotions. If he would just make me happy, if my kid would just do what she's supposed to do, I would be happy. But that's not true. It's like, if your kid does what you want them to do, your thoughts about your kid change, and it's your thoughts that create that fulfillment, right? So it's always our minds that are creating our emotions. And our minds create thoughts, our bodies create emotion. And so we have to allow that channel to exist and to process it, right? So we have to have that open communication. Okay, now I'll get back to your post, I promise. I get waves of wanting to drink when I really don't want to drink. Yes, it's just desire. It's just old programmed thoughts that you keep having. So I was like that too, right? I started moving away to this space where I don't want to be this woman anymore who's finishing off a bottle of wine every night. It's not who I want to be. Yes, I've been there. Yes, it may have served me. Maybe I didn't want to change back then, but now I want to change. And I would notice the desire come, but I was like, I don't even like the taste of it. I don't even want it. Why am I drinking it? I'd find myself drinking, and it's like, I don't want to be drinking it. Why am I drinking it? Absolutely. So that, to me, tells me you're in the process of change, and it feels weird, and you kind of don't understand it because you're operating out of the old habit, why your brain is forming a new one. Totally normal. I'm starting to wait to see if I really want it. Yes, right? Like, Maybe you're just operating on default. Like I said all the time, right when I got home from work, came into my kitchen, boom, that's when the trigger and the desire and all of that would hit. And then it would still hit, even though when I was starting to change process, right? Like I was like, but I really don't desire it in terms of I really, really want it. I just want it because that's what I do all the time at this point in my day. So it became this disconnect, right? And it feels uncomfortable because your emotions are like, what do I do? I'm getting a signal to drink, but I really don't want the drink. It's like that, they call it that cognitive dissonance, right? You've got two competing thoughts, which lead to two competing emotions, right? Which then you just can't understand which one you should follow. And so I love some of the cartoons. It's like the devil on the shoulder and the angel on the shoulder, right? And, you know, which advice should we follow? So when we have that cognitive dissonance, a lot of times we need to really understand where both of those are coming from. Sometimes we can't get on the other side of it unless we break down where this thought and feeling is coming from and where this thought and feeling is coming from. And a lot of times, if you, I think you were on my presentation last night, Cara, right? It's that primitive brain is going to have one opinion and thought process, and your prefrontal cortex brain is going to have another opinion and another thought process. So we have to rectify that, and we have to strengthen the prefrontal cortex in that moment, right? Big names, but it's just really saying, I'm going to hone in on this version of me that I want to be. So you're doing that by just waiting and saying, do I really want this drink, or am I just drinking out of habit? And a lot of times when we drink out of habit, we really don't want the drink. We just didn't pay attention to it before. We just drank because that's what we did. It's like you get in your car and you drive to work and you don't have to think about driving to work, right? Because it's just what you do. You don't have to remember the freeways and where all the stop signs are. Your brain's already got it down. So it just goes into, you know, just not focusing on it, right? So you're driving to work and some days you park your car and you're like, how did I even get here? Oh my gosh, that's strange. I don't remember anything about the drive. No, because your brain was thinking about something else. It didn't have to think about the automated process. Yeah. And so you already stopped at 2 drinks. Yeah, you become aware of who you want to be and how you want to relate to alcohol. And that starts to be your overriding motive when you drink. So it's not about the drinking, it's about who you want to be and your relationship to the alcohol. So now the alcohol becomes less important. And when it becomes less important, as you're seeing, you want less of it. Because it used to be so important. And now you're realizing it's not so important. Oh my gosh, I didn't know I could create that in my brain. I can create it being less important. I thought that just had to fall out of the sky, right? I just thought I had to like wake up one day and, you know, be hit by something that says, I'm not going to drink again. No, that's not the way it works, right? It's a decision to change. And then it's constantly committing to that decision each moment of the day, right? Especially when the triggers come. All right, I hope that was helpful, Cara. Cara is pronounced either way. Not the way Cara is pronounced, the other way, not the way you're saying it. So Cara, is it like car? Let me know, because I really want to pronounce it right, because I know I told you I have 2 friends. No, it's not Cara. It's Cara. Cara? Let me know. Cara. Okay. Oh, AA wrote in. I think that's funny. AA. As we're talking about drinking. How can I decondition triggers? Yeah, first of all, how do I even notice triggers? Yeah, well, when does your desire come? And so just notice when your desire comes, right? When do you desire a drink? Do you desire it right when you wake up? Most of us don't, right? When does the desire come? If you are habitually drinking, you'll probably notice certain patterns, right? It's after work. It's when I start cooking. It's when I sit down to eat my dinner. It's when I put the kids to bed, and that's my time. And that's when I want the drink, right? So it may be time. It may be location. So for me, it was time and location. It was the end of the day, and I walked into my kitchen. Happens to be that's where I kept my alcohol, right? So it was in the fridge. So those were two triggers, right? And so then I had to like, oh, my brain, when it walks into my kitchen, not at 8 in the morning or not at 6 in the morning, when my brain walks into my kitchen at 6 in the morning, it expects coffee. It doesn't expect wine. But when my brain walks into my kitchen and it's after 5 o'clock after my workday, I'm noticing it wants to pour wine. Oh, walking into my kitchen at this time of my day is a trigger. So you really have to really tune into what is driving the desire. And those are your triggers. It could be, gosh, every time I hang out with my girlfriend, Renee, we drink. Renee is a trigger, right? You know, every time I go out on a date night with my husband, I notice I want a nice martini or a nice glass of wine. So, date night might be a trigger, right? So it's where you're noticing your desire. Okay. All right. And then we have to work towards deconditioning that. And that is really not answering the trigger. That's not answering it and feeding the trigger, right? So I talk about the whole process of de-triggering in my programs. So it's really about allowing the urge to be there without giving into it. Because every time we give into an urge, guess what? We're only fueling that habit. We're only fueling that trigger. We're saying, okay, trigger, you came, you want alcohol, here it is. So you're constantly promoting that feedback loop. Okay, so it's not Kara, it's Kara. Okay, thank you, Kara. Kara. All right, what other things can I help with? I'm looking to see if anybody raised their hand. And don't be intimidated. You can just talk. You don't have to turn on your video if you don't want to, but it allows a nice exchange because we can talk real time. Or if you're uncomfortable, that's okay. I got you in the Q&A box. So what else can I expand upon? Where else are you stuck? What's your goal? How about that? You tell me in the Q&A box. Tell me exactly what type of relationship you want with alcohol. What are you trying to achieve? Because let's not talk about maybe where we are. If you don't want to start there, let's talk about where you're trying to get to. What is that place you want to get to? Okay. So Kara says, that was my problem the entire time. I was unconditionally looking for something outside of me to stop me from drinking. Yeah, we all do, because we're taught like, oh yeah, just, you know, do this program. Don't drink for 30 days. Don't do that. Like, no, but the work is inside. The work is inside our head, right? And that is where it all needs to be done. When that is done, there is no power in the drink, right? It's just like a glass of water, a bowl of broccoli, whatever, right? It doesn't have meaning. We are the ones that give it meaning. We give it the meaning of it will relax me. We give it the meaning of it'll help me go to sleep at night. We give it the meaning that it'll cure my boredom. I have to tell you, you are still bored when you're drinking. You just don't notice it because you're numb. Because it's caused numbing of your sensations. It's caused numbing of the brain, right? You're still bored. You're probably still not doing anything when you're drinking, right? So it gives us the illusion that we've solved the problem. It gives us the illusion that that feeling is no longer there. So I just wrote this article that I'll be hopefully publishing soon, where it's just, I think of it like this. It's just pulling the curtain, right? So I'm bored. Let's pull the curtain. Let's throw back a bottle of wine, right? It's just pulling the curtain. But if you pull back the curtain, the boredom is still there. Your unhappiness about something is still there. Your frustration about something is still there, right? But we think it's no longer there because we pulled the curtain, which means we just drank until we couldn't recognize it anymore, until we couldn't see it anymore. It's behind the curtain, it must be gone. So I hope that helps. All right, I just scrolling to make sure I got all the comments. Yeah, so what else can I help you with? These sessions are really meant for you. And so I want to help you where you're at. Nobody wrote me in what their goal is with their drinking. Interesting. I wonder why that is. Do you not know? Are you leaving it up to chance? Are you hoping you'll discover it someday? Like, really get really clear on that right now. If you can't get clear on that, it's very hard to determine when you're successful, right? So I can help you get clarity on that. I would ask you a ton of questions if you're not clear. Let's go. Let's do this. Okay, let's see my scroll bar. Okay, my goal with drinking is to feel good about myself. Yeah. So if that's your goal with drinking is to feel good about yourself, honestly, drinking's never going to allow you to feel good about yourself. What allows you to feel good about yourself is your thoughts about yourself. And no matter if we drink 1 glass or we drink 28 glasses, your view about yourself won't change. If you drink no glasses of wine ever, or you drink 10 glasses in one day, every day, you know what? Your opinion about yourself will still be the same. So here's the thing. You might be like, no, I don't think that's right. So let's say you are at your dream goal, right? And this is an exercise I do with my clients, and it's a little sobering, and I don't always like using that word, but it's very telling. So if you got to your dream goal, let's say your goal is 1 drink a week. Let's just make it really low. 1 drink a week. How do you think you're going to feel when you're there? You're going to feel good. You're going to feel accomplished. You're going to feel like I got this. Drinking is no longer something that defines me or something that I feel I have a problem with, and I don't have all the negative consequences showing up. But after you've been there for a month or 2, guess what? You're going to have the same thoughts about yourself if you didn't learn how to change those thoughts about yourself along the way. It's like a lot of people, I use a lot of examples because a lot of people have tried the weight loss way. So you lose a lot of weight. Say you lose 20 pounds or 10 pounds, whatever. And you like how you feel. But you notice like maybe not much else has changed. Like you thought you'd be more confident and you are a little confident and you feel a little bit better in your clothes maybe, but you're not like as confident as you thought you were. Because the change in confidence or how you feel about yourself has to come from your thoughts, not by your actions, not by the weight loss, not by achieving drinking less. You're still going to feel a certain way about yourself. And I have to tell you, the human experience is not always happy. So even though you'll feel good, you will still feel a lot of the time disappointed and sad. It'll just be about other things. It won't be about your drinking. It'll be about other things. So that's why I am so adamant that everybody that goes through my programs, and even here, you have to learn emotional management. If not, you will go back to eating your old ways. You will go back to drinking your old ways because you will think, I felt better then. I felt better over there than I do here. I thought I'd be happier here. And yes, you're happier about one aspect of your life, but it doesn't mean it's all rainbows and daisies over here when you get there. It's still a life that's 50-50. It's still a life that has boredom and sadness and disappointment. We just choose not to buffer it. We just choose not to numb with food or alcohol, right? So it's not like your life is all rainbows and daisies, right? You still have all the emotions because that's part of the human condition. We can never get rid of that. And once we can make peace with that, then the alcohol becomes even less important because you're like, oh, here my brain was telling me it's a cure, at least for a couple hours, it's a cure, but it really isn't. It's just a curtain. It's never a cure. And alcohol, too much of it, adds problems to our lives, right? Okay, so I hope that's clarifying is to feel good about yourself. Even when you're drinking, I tell my girls, you have to start feeling good about yourself now because you can't expect that once you get there, it's going to be rainbows and daisies. And how you feel good about yourself is showing up to be the woman you want to be on a daily basis. It's not some end goal. I've made it. I finished the marathon. I've done this. No, it's the journey to that, right? And that's how you have to live day by day. All right, so if you've got questions about that, feel free to write in. I'd love to help you if that's something you need help with too. Okay, what else? Nobody else wrote in their goals. Do you want to become a woman who can take it or leave it? Do you want to be a woman who it's like no pull over you? You don't even crave it? Wouldn't that be awesome? That's what I dreamt about for so long, right? I just want to be someone, yeah, it's in the fridge, but I don't crave it. I could care less if I have some or I don't. There was some in their fridge yesterday, and my husband was pouring a glass, and he's like, "You want some?" I'm like, "No, I'm not craving it." Took a little sip of his, and I'm like, "Yeah, no, so not craving it. I'll have it Friday, tomorrow, because it's our anniversary, and I plan on having some, and I bought some champagne to celebrate, and that'll be fun. But I want to have it then, and that's how I want alcohol to be in my life. I want it to be a small joy here and there. It's not something that buffers my emotions. It's not something I turn to if I'm frustrated with family members or homeschooling. It's not something I turn to because I'm bored. Because I realize it doesn't cure the boredom. It doesn't cure the frustration, right? It's just a temporary band-aid, but it doesn't heal. So for me, those don't feel like good reasons to drink anymore. Now, do my clients feel that way? No, everybody feels a little bit differently how they want alcohol to play in their lives. But what I challenge you to do is you got to get super clear. Because if you don't know, your brain will always say, hey, alcohol will make this feel better. Alcohol will make you feel better. Come on over here, sit with me. Right? And you just want to be clear about, hey, if I want this relationship with alcohol, here's how I want it to look. And here's where I feel best. If I have too much, I feel cloudy, I feel hungover, I don't feel good, I'm putting on weight, my skin feels like yuck, or I feel bloated, or whatever, So you got to find where that is for you. And some people may choose never again. Maybe I felt fine with how much I had in my 20s and my 30s, but now that I'm older, I'm just not seeing that I really want it and I enjoy it like I used to. And I'm okay with letting that go. I'm just okay now with just saying goodbye. So we get you to that goal too, right? Anything is possible as long as you're willing to do the work to get there. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Kara, I should be clear on what I said. I meant feel better physically. Yes, that's a big difference. Absolutely. Yeah, you do feel better physically because you don't have this depressant floating around in our body. And it really taxes the liver because the liver prioritizes alcohol. So when you drink it, there's no nutritional value. Zip, zilch. And I know they say red wine has resveratrol in it, which you could get resveratrol from blueberries and raspberries. It's not the only source of resveratrol. So it's not like, yeah, and the amount that you would need can't come from one glass of red wine, right? So it's got like marginal nutritional value. And it's not even proven in all data sources, right? There is some contradictory sources to that, but hey, I won't get deep into the science. So on the average, all alcohol is really non-nutritional. So the body's like, this is a toxin. Let me break this down. Oh, let's wait on the broccoli because that's not a toxin, but we've got to metabolize this and get this out of the system because this substance can kill us, right? So it starts to focus on metabolizing that, and you're not getting the nutrients absorbed from the broccoli, and it's changing your microbiome, and your microbiome is responsible for keeping 70% of your immune cells healthy and functioning, 90% of your serotonin levels regulated and traveling up to the brain so you feel happy. All of that gets diminished and dampened when you take in this toxin that kills cells in your stomach lining, in your liver, in your brain. And so you do feel worse physically. And you do become, alcoholics are immunocompromised. They get infections really quick and they don't heal so quickly because alcohol affects the immune system so dramatically, right? So we can't just say compartmentalize, it only affects the brain or it only affects the liver. No, it's a whole body process. And so if you see extreme alcoholics, right, they will spend all their money on alcohol because the primitive brain has told them, hey, this is the most important thing. So they will prioritize spending it on alcohol over food. And then they became cachectic, which means they start losing a lot of weight and they don't absorb nutrients. And so when you come into the hospital, the standard protocol is stick them on a banana bag, right, which is just thiamine stuck in all these nutrients so they could get back absorbed into the body, because alcohol doesn't allow us to absorb the nutrients when it's so focused on processing it, metabolizing it, and getting it out of the system. And it kills some cells along the way that are responsible for the nutrients being absorbed. So if you want to follow this healthy, clean diet, a lot of people are doing Whole30s now and keto because they have more time at home, they have more time for food prep. But you're killing all that with alcohol, right? Like you're not getting the maximal benefit, not all of the process, but you're just not getting the maximal benefit that you can if you're overdoing it with alcohol. Yeah, so physically, yes, I got off on a tangent. Absolutely. And have more energy. Good. Yes. Yeah, and you will feel more energized because your body as a whole will function the way it was meant to function, right? Just think if you're adding, a depressant and a suppressant on your GI system, your CNS system, all of that is what you do when we over imbibe with alcohol. And so we don't operate at our highest level. Yeah. So to feel better physically and mentally is absolutely something people feel right away when they start cutting back. Maybe not the first 2 days, but usually very quickly, they'll start feeling a ton better. Is that why we can't lose weight? Yeah, because most alcohols, not all, like not vodka, and depends what you mix it with, right? So most alcohols are sugar. So, or they get converted to sugar. So sugar, we know when that hits our bloodstream, right, we get a secretion of insulin. And insulin has to regulate our blood sugar because if it needs to stay within a certain range or we can die of too high of a blood sugar. So when it gets high, the insulin gets released and the insulin takes it and stores it immediately as fat. Unless we need it, like unless we're eating sugar and then we're going to work out, or increasing our aerobic exercise, but most of us aren't. Most of us are sitting and drinking. The exercise does not count when we just lift the glass to our mouth. So we're not using that glucose. We're not needing that sugar. So when we don't need it, the insulin just throws it into fat cells, right? So it just becomes adipose tissue, just gets stored as adipose tissue. The same thing happens when we eat goldfish or crackers or, processed carbohydrates in excess too, right? It's like the body's like, whoa, too much sugar. This all gets broken down to sugar. We don't need it. You're just sitting around. We're exercising even less now because we have nowhere to go and we're sitting around a lot more. And so we actually need less calories during this time if you're not going to work and you're sitting and you're not moving as much, right? So we should be scaling back, but a lot of us are scaling up on the consumption of our calories and specifically what calories, right? None of us are sitting around eating bags of broccoli. We're sitting around eating Cheez-Its and comfort food. So yeah, so exactly. So when that insulin spikes, that's what causes the weight gain. And the insulin will only spike when you have a surplus of blood sugar. Yeah. So I think the hormones of it and how everything plays together as a whole, right? We can't think in silos anymore. And medicine, you see your cardiologist for your heart, you see your endocrinologist for anything hormonal or endocrine going on or diabetes, right? But we're realizing now how everything is interconnected and how the mind can create disease in of itself, right? We know there's mental health, but there's also subclinical depression, subclinical anxiety, subclinical things going on, that a lot of that is generated by our own mind because we're We have habits that don't serve us. Maybe we're habit warriors. Maybe we're habit overthinkers. Maybe we're habit anxious people all the time. And so that can lead to low level dysfunction or dis-ease in the body, meaning the body's not at ease, meaning something's ramped up, maybe higher cortisol levels, higher adrenaline levels, like things that are not in balance in the body. So I just love all of that because it all feeds in so nicely. Especially, I like to target this when I'm working with a client who says, gosh, I'm so into a clean food and I don't know why I'm doing this. So I'll tell me what you love about your way of eating that makes you feel complete and whole and all of that. Or some people be like, I'm really into fitness. And so we look for reasons how they're thinking about fitness or their diet, and let's adopt those thoughts to alcohol. So where are you getting like super impressive results, or somewhere where you really like the way you behave in a certain area of life? Maybe you feel like, I never let my employer down. I'm such a good worker, right? And you have good, clean thoughts there. Well, let's try migrating that over here and see how some of those thoughts can translate to your relationship around alcohol to clean that up. And I found that could be a very effective way and a quick way to get started on creating the relationship you want with alcohol. All right. Okay. Anyone else have questions for me? I'd love to help. Thank you so much for what you wrote in already. This really helps me understand where you're at, and what tools I can create coming forward in the next coming weeks to help you out. When I get feedback from you, it's inspiration for me to write a blog post about that, or develop a worksheet, or do a training or a Facebook Live. Because I have a lot of ideas, but it's always nice to connect with where somebody is struggling. And then it's like, oh, it's time to talk about that, or it's time to talk about this. So this pandemic has really highlighted, how we're all on edge with our emotions, right? There's so many articles on different websites that I read about how the mental health is going down, and people are shaming on some sites about, hey, I saw somebody buying a candle at the grocery store. That's a non-essential item. Why was she doing that? So we're shaming others for their buying habits, and it's all making us feel like, wow, we're being watched, and none of us feel supported, right, on some of these sites. So we really have to be careful with that input that we're getting in, because that could feel very heavy, and you could feel very upset for both parties. Maybe you have some judgment on the lady, but maybe you feel like, wow, well, what if that's the thing that brings her happiness? Or maybe she lights a candle every year when to celebrate the passing of her husband, or we have no idea why she's buying that candle, right? So there's just so much going on right now that's not always compassionate, right? We see it from our view. And of course, we feel we're doing the world a service by judging others, but really we have to check in with that. Are we doing the world a service when we just be judgmental to others, and we really don't know how it is to walk in their shoes? All right. That was a side tangent. As my pastor would say, free of charge. All right. So yes, losing weight, if that's an issue, I'd love to talk more about that, because I've had my own struggles there a little bit. And I'm really into the hormone part of it and how our body responds to different chemicals. And if you think about it, anything you put into your body is only a signal. It's crazy to think that way, right? So if I'm putting in lettuce, it's going to signal pathways differently than if I put in Cheez-Its, right? The chemicals coming out of that are either going to be promoting health or not promoting health. So if you didn't have taste buds, would you choose differently? That's a deep thought, right? If you didn't say, I like this, but I don't like this, and you just purely ate for the chemical cascade that happens in your body, and just think of that. And the chemical cascades we're talking about with kale, or, healthier lifestyles and healthier diets, those lead to more serotonin production, more chemicals that make us feel good. Whereas the Cheez-Its shut off those. And therefore, when we have more of that kind of diet, guess what else we want to feel? We want to feel good. So since we're not producing our own serotonin and our own feel good chemicals, we look to outside of us for those chemicals, right? We look to outside of us. Hey, we're not getting enough dopamine. Let me get a dopamine hit with my wine. So it's all interplays, right? So that's why cleaning up one area of your life can really motivate you in other areas, because you're like, wow, I see how I feel so differently, and I see how my body's responding so differently. And that is really motivating when you feel that momentum, right? You're like, oh, yeah, okay, now I want to go for a walk. Now I want to do this, right? Now you start adding on smaller other habits that really improve health and your lifestyle. All right, let me see. Okay, another comment from Cara. I was so relieved when alcohol was considered essential. I couldn't afford to buy it in bulk like some people, lol. My first thought practically when the pandemic came, yeah, right? We were like, oh, I can run out for that and not be shunned by society. I mean, yeah, right? So just think about how others people's judgments and perceptions affect us. And it's good to notice. And then the next step I take it with my clients is like, okay, now that you notice how it affects you, does that affect you in a good way or a bad way? So if it's a good way, maybe we want to keep noticing it. If it affects us in a bad way, maybe we would want to train our brain to not notice it so much, because it doesn't serve us. It allows us to spiral or causes us to do things we don't want to be doing. So everything's cause and effect, right? So we just want to keep asking, does this thought serve me? Does my relationship with this amount of alcohol serve me? If not, what do I want to create? And then start the process of the creation. We are creative humans, right? We can create iPhones, we can create new relationships, we can create art, we can create so much. We could create books, we can create desks and chairs and carpets and houses. I mean, we could create all these things. We're creative people, and we are meant to evolve and have different relationships with different things at different times. So I think that's so powerful to know that you are never stuck. The only place you're ever stuck is in your mind. It's the only place. That's it. But being stuck is not possible. The world is constantly changing. The earth is constantly moving, right? Like things are constantly changing. They always will. So you never have to be stuck. The only place you really can be stuck is in your mind. And if you're stuck, I'm here for you. I'd love to help. All right, ladies, I don't see anything else. I don't see anybody raising a hand. Anything else? Last call, last call. And if not, I certainly appreciated your time today. I hope you found it valuable. And always feel free to comment on my Facebook page wherever you're struggling or if you need help anywhere. And I will be back next week to do some more Facebook Lives and some more trainings. All right, ladies, thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.